Welcome to the Joyosity podcast. Whether you are a seasoned leader or just starting out, this is the place for you. So, as we jump into Joyosity, we always base our work here on three bedrock beliefs. True leadership requires more than just surface level strategies. It requires a profound commitment to everything that makes us human. Using genuine curiosity is number two. And that is how we create positive culture with complex people, because complex people are the only ones that we've got to work with. And number three, joy is the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. So we're putting joy and fun and actual play right in front and center of our work. And every week we're bringing you real conversations, real ideas to help you lead well, to build a movement with you based on hard-won wisdom, real life experience, and leading research. I'm Jen Whitmer, international speaker, leadership consultant, and all-around joy bringer, helping you bring these ideas into the action in your everyday life. So let's get ready. Before we jump into today's topic, make sure you've got your multiple beverages. I've got my Dolly mug here today. And because I'm recording this and I'm live right now, if you're listening to the podcast, it's recorded. If you're live, are you wearing a costume? Because this is my costume. I'm going to let you figure out what it is. And maybe by the end, if you tell me in the comments what you think it is, but we're going to jump in to today's topic around connection. So what I had planned to talk about today on Halloween was the power of connection. That's still what we're going to cover. But what I have noticed in the last few days is a lot of pain. I've noticed a lot of pain and just free falling anxiety. And it has shown up in every space, from professional to personal to just being out in the world. And I have some ideas about why that is happening. And I bet that you can understand that too. So when I think about how I feel right now and what I have noticed other people are feeling right now, there is a deep sense of anxiety. There's a deep sense of distrust and a deep sense of disconnection. And I'm wondering if you feel that too. If this disconnection and distrust is happening for you in your spaces. And as a leader of my own team, of this community, of people in my leadership lab, of my clients, it would be foolish to just plow through and not recognize that. It's really easy and a mistake at the same time to ignore what we like to call the elephant in the room. That the elephant in the room is that right now we are in the United States in an incredibly intense election cycle. We are just a few days out from the Tuesday election. And if you're listening to the podcast right now, you're a day away from maybe finding out the results, or a day past maybe finding out the results, maybe not. This is coming out on Wednesday, the day after the election, and sometimes we don't know the results that day. Sometimes we do. And I don't know if this is going to suddenly change just because the election is over. It's much deeper than partisan divides, what I'm noticing. And as a leader, that shows up in your team meetings. It shows up in your communications. It shows up in the way you dole out work, the way that you organize your day. All of these components are about connections, and meaningful connections don't just happen from looking at a report together or creating the features and benefits list or just saying, here we are all on the same page. That is not how you build connection. Connection is about being human together. So this past week, I've been really doubling down and spending a lot of time working on my book. And I can't just do it in this office. I have to get out. And so I've been doing that work in coffee shops. I've been doing that work in the library a lot. And something has shifted because at the library, they're doing early voting. And so, as I am seeing this super long line of people participating in the democratic process, I'm noticing this kind of unease. I don't even have to talk to people, and there's this element of unease that is happening, but it is still so human. And every once in a while, you'll see somebody like wave across the room. And this week, I ran into somebody that I haven't seen in years, and we chatted for a super long time as she snaked her way around the library. That feeling of connection is incredibly powerful in your business. Coping without connection looks like higher absenteeism, people just not showing up, lower productivity, less growth, less innovation, and I'm pretty sure that is not what you want as a leader. So how do we, in this moment that feels so disconnected and almost risky to jump into the human element of connection, how do we do this? What does that look like? And so the first thing you need to know is that connections are absolutely the glue of healthy leadership. You don't build leadership teams who are high performing without huge elements of trust. And the way you build trust is being together. So one time I was really annoyed with a coworker. And we hadn't seen each other in a long time. This was pre-COVID, but we still didn't have a lot of communication because we were both traveling a lot. And so I was just getting more and more frustrated. And every Slack message just ratcheted up a little bit. And technically, I was the one in charge of the concept and the project, but neither one of us were like the leader of the team. And in this space where you're working with coworkers, you still have to lead yourself. And so as I kept getting these messages that were super frustrating and confusing, I had to figure out, how am I going to connect? Because right now it just feels like we're going in opposite directions. And it wasn't the project that was the problem. We both had the same goals about the project. In fact, we didn't really have even that many differences about how to accomplish the project. It was just this internal human lack of connection, because every Slack message was transactional and felt confrontational instead of two people who were in flow together trying to accomplish the goal. And so I remember sitting actually in this chair going, I haven't seen her. I actually don't feel connected. That was the revelation. Our glue of being connected and working together in the same space had just disintegrated a little bit. And when you feel that, that is when you get those other negative impacts, the low productivity because we're spending so much time miscommunicating, the lack of creativity on our project wasn't moving forward very well. And then just the internal angst of being irritated all the time because why can't she just do this the way I want you to do this? When you're in that space, that's what that feels like. So that glue had really disintegrated for us. And the way forward was to get onto the same page, not just like agree, but truly connect. So what I decided to do was hop on the phone. And so I just gave her a call, and I realized, I was like, hey, I just haven't heard your voice in a long time. And she happened to really like donuts. And I was like, do you want to go get some donuts and run over here? And she was like, yeah. So we ended up just going to get some donuts. We spent some time. We met that place later that morning over donuts because she likes them. They're not always my favorite, but this donut shop is really good. And in that time, we didn't really have a conflict that we needed to cover, what we did was we just connected. We talked some about the project. We talked some about her upcoming trip. She was newly married and she got back for her honeymoon and they were heading off to another trip soon. And the connection was the human connection, not the business connection. It immediately lowered the intensity of what things were feeling like for us. So the next Slack message I got later that day was not irritating. We were more in sync about what we wanted to accomplish and how we wanted to do it. And everything started to flow better. And that's because connection is the glue of healthy leadership. You want connection and clarity about what people are doing, how they do it, and that is what builds trust because there's presence. Now, in a hybrid space, that can be really hard to do. And I was thinking about this story and I'm like, what would I do now if she were in a very different city? I still think I would pick up the phone and say, "Hey, do you wanna have lunch together? And can I send you lunch? Can I send you something?" And we would get together. You don't have to do that. I just think eating over food is always a great connection. But that connection builds trust. And when you build trust with other people, that is what increases your ability to work well together. So, first thing is that connections are the glue, and you have to get something sticky to glue to. So, the from that, you have to have something solid. Connections require something solid for somebody to connect to. So, every bag from my favorite luggage company, Base, if ever heard me talk about Base luggage, this is not an ad. I just love them. It has a key leash. I happen to have one. I didn't plan this, but every bag has a key leash. It has something to attach my keys to. Now, I am a person who super easily loses my keys. Like it is not hard for them to disappear. And they need something to connect to. And otherwise, they get left on a counter, they roam in a bag and you're rustling through trying to find your keys or like which pocket did I put them in and the leadership lesson I'm jumping to here is the idea that you have to have something to connect to. If I just throw it in my bag, sure, the keys are there. The connection is possible, but there's not something solid to connect to. That key leash, I always know where the keys are in whatever bag I have because it's connected. So connection requires something solid. So for you as the leader, that actually begins with you. You have to know where you are in order for somebody to connect to you. Have you ever tried to talk to somebody that doesn't seem to have an opinion or they just aren't really present with you or they don't seem to understand or know themselves very well and you're like, I can't figure out how to connect to you. That's what it feels like when people are trying to connect to you when you don't know yourself very well. You can connect a little bit over maybe a book that you've read or a movie or something, the weather, the current political climate, all of those things you can try, but it's not so much a solid connection. And that idea of creating solid connection is consistency of understanding yourself. You've got to know yourself. And when you know yourself first, I always start with personality because it's the thing that we're unaware of that will, as Carl Jung said, direct your life and you will call it fate. It will direct your life and you will call it fate if you don't know your personality. So that's why I love using the Enneagram as a personality tool to understand who you are. That internal knowledge of what's motivating you, why you think, act, and feel the way you do is something solid to connect to with other people. And especially in this space where we're all feeling this free falling anxiety, when we're all feeling the weight of what's going to happen next, it feels brave or contentious even to reveal yourself to other people. But when you do that, that is when people are like, "Oh, You're real. Okay, great. I can connect with that. And you start to find the common humanity, your common beliefs, your common bridge that you can connect over. I'm not talking about this idea of, well, at least we can divide and conquer. I'm talking about what is the solid thing that you can connect over because you find the commonality, and that you have to know yourself in order to find the commonality. I'm doing and offering some leadership intensives for leaders who would like to dive in. You don't have the time for the leadership retreat that I'm doing next week, or you just need to get it done. And so we're going to do some intensives of digging into what are your values, like we talked about all last month. What is your personality? What is your leadership mindset? How do you reliably shift that so you can build this type of trust and connection with yourself first and then with other people? Because once your team has that, they know where the bridges are. You can find that. So you have to start with yourself first. And so if you're interested in that, you can shoot me an email, or you can go to jenwhitmer.com/intensive and fill that out, and I'll connect with you over the intensive. And it, even if that's not for you, I implore you to start thinking about what is me here? What do people connect with, and how do I know myself better? What are my values? How does my personality show up? Those types of things. The third thing that really increases engagement, that really builds real connections, is understanding the human that is on the other side. So I alluded to this a little bit with my story about the donuts. It's really easy to make up so many stories about people when you feel disconnected. So when you get a resume, you look through it and you make up a lot of stories. But when you meet somebody at the grocery store, at a networking event, at a conference, you don't ask them for their resume. You're not like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Can I see your resume?" No, that's not how people behave. That is not the human way to do that. And so what you do is you start asking questions. You are like, "Hey, how are you? How did you get here? What brought you to this event?" Or if you know them, when I ran into my friend Janet, I was like, "Oh my gosh, how are your kids?" And one of her sons is coaching for the men's national soccer team. And another one of her daughters, I didn't know, had triplets who are now three. So like connecting over those things that matter to us are how you build real connections. A piece of paper can never tell you or give you the complexity of a human. So you ask questions and then be willing to share some of yourself. And I know sometimes in the workplace, we're like, "Ooh, what's allowed and what's not allowed?" I obviously want you to have boundaries about things that you share, but be willing to be vulnerable with people about the real stuff. One of the things that I think about a lot as a leader in the public space, if you're following me on Instagram, if you're following me on LinkedIn, especially in my Instagram stories. I highly encourage you to follow me on Instagram because that's where the crazy fun is. I will go with my frownies on, or I'll share the real things that are happening. And what I find every time is that people connect when they see the real. People are desperate for authentic connection, not just online, but in your conference room and in the Zoom room. They want to know the real you, not the buttoned up. I talked to another friend, it was like corporate Katie, like whoever that is, that's not what they want. They want to connect with the real human. And so when you as a leader demonstrate that by asking interested questions in who people are and share some of yourself with others, that's how you build real connections. The other thing I want you to know when we're thinking about boundaries and connections is that it's not that you have to share everything with everyone. It's that you do share something real of yourself. So I'm curious, those of you who are listening, what do you think of that in the workplace when you are sharing something real about yourself? And I think one of Like, what are you afraid of when you do that? I think one of my fears was always, I don't wanna be the oversharer. I come from the era of, "Ooh, TMI. I don't know about that." We don't always want that, but we want something like we talked about the key leash that, oh yeah, Steele is saying it's solid and consistent. You trust that. So sharing something that is real about who you are, what you love, what you might be afraid of, those types of things will connect you to others. I have one client who has been a leader in multiple places, and we've worked together on and off over the last few years. And as he has changed jobs, people follow him. And as we were working through some of his values and really digging into that, one of the values that really came up for him was integrity. And that integrity, because he was always consistent and people knew what to expect, he developed really high levels of trust. He is also on the Enneagram, he is a connector leadership style. So he is very good at connecting with people and developing others. And so living by that value of integrity, sharing that with people, connecting with the real things about who he is, really high performing people would follow him to the next organization. So not only does connection build your current team and help the organization that you are currently in, when you build real connections, you develop the trust that is long-standing and foundational to your career. And some people haven't followed him to his new business, but when they have gone to other places that are vendors or things in the industry that he works in, he can call them and then they have better working relationships to collaborate. So it is a benefit to you and your new organization well. When you build real connections with people, that's what happens. So, as we are in this space, I also want to remind you that this is a difficult outside circumstance. Not one of us, not one individual controls this election. Not not one of us. Not one individual can change the weather or any really for that matter. Not one individual uh, can do this on their own. And at the same time, those outside circumstances don't change your power to connect with other people and the importance of connection. Don't let the outside circumstances shape how you choose to show up as a leader. Don't let the outside circumstances change how you choose to show up as a leader. In casual conversations, in the fun Slack channel, in the Teams call, in your end of year planning meetings, as you're starting to look at the performance reviews, choose to connect with people for real. The impact on your leadership is staggering. That trust building in organizations, according to Great Places to Work, they have a 400% better profit outcomes for high trust cultures. You can't build a high trust culture without individuals truly connecting. And that's what I want for you. That's what feels good too as people, as humans. We want that. And so when you're sitting around Thanksgiving tables or you're discussing the election results, remember to connect with the human in front of you, not their resumes, not their political ideology. Connect with the human in front of you. That is your power as a leader. That's your power as a leader. You have to start with you. So, besides the intensives, one way that you can build that self-awareness to be that key leash to understand yourself is to explore your what brings you joy and what drains you. Not only does that help you connect with others, it also helps you to set the boundaries that you need to connect with others. That's a whole other podcast. And so the Joyosity Explorer map is a great option for you if you're like, hey, I just want to start looking at that. And so if you are interested in that, you can go to Joyosity Explorer on my website. So jenwhitmer.com/Joyosity Explorer. We'll put it in the show notes as well. And that's another way you can start connecting first with you to help you connect with other people. It'll also help you in all of those challenging conversations because you'll understand yourself better in a way that actually brings you joy. That ultimately, as we talk about bringing joy into the workplace, that joyful and high trust cultures, that kind of work, that's what I want for you. That's what creates the productivity. That's what creates the employee engagement. That's what creates the connections that you want as a leader. So in this difficult time, like I can't deny it. I feel the pressure and the weight, and it feels just a little low. If you're experiencing that too, you're not alone. We can connect over that as well. So my encouragement to you is to get that Joyosity Explorer map and figure more out about yourself. If you're ready to go deeper, check out the Joyosity intensives. But at the very least, connect with somebody today. Send me a DM. Send that person that you haven't talked to in a while a DM. Send that coworker that you're like, oh, it always feels a little, I don't really know. Just ask them how they're doing with no agenda whatsoever. Just connect with somebody. That is going to be powerful for not only bringing you joy, but making you a really healthy leader.
So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at Jen with 2 N's at jenwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.